mistakes. In yesterday's lecture, we began to deal with the occurrence of things in the Quran a number of times that is a product of 7. And we saw that this is unusual to have so many occurrences of 7. And this researcher has gone to great lengths in putting together his research in a massive document, 274 pages long. That's Abduldaim Al-Kahil, and I'll share with you some of his findings in this lecture. So what he does is that he goes to a deeper level than just the surface level. You know, if you put together, we said already, if you pick a number at random, the chance of it being a product of 7 is 1 out of 7. And if you go pick another number at random, the chance of the two of them together, each being a product of 7, is 1 out of 7 times 1 out of 7 is actually 1 out of 49. Your chances are becoming slimmer and slimmer. Now, if you were to put together, just sometimes people want to pick a winning lottery number or whatever, so they pick a number from their birthday, or maybe the street number, or something like this. They just pick a number based on some other number they already know. So if we take numbers from the Quran and put them together in a systematic manner, and we see that the 7s are coming out again and again, then this is unusual. Now, if one person, for example, were to say, okay, take the numbers that make up my birthday. So I have a month, a day, and a year. And now, at first shot, month, day, and year, for it to, if you put those three numbers together to make a longer number, because you want to make a long random number, then the chance of that number being a product of 7 is 1 out of 7, because you're putting the three numbers together. Now you have some choice. If you say, okay, instead of putting the entire year, 1900 and whatever, I'll just put the last two numbers. So that now increases your chances of getting the 7, because you didn't get it on the first shot, but now you're going to get it on the second shot, maybe. And then if you say, okay, in the British system, they put the month before, in the British system, but they put the day before the month. And then in the American system, they put the month before the day. So you say, okay, let's try it this other way. Instead of putting the month before the day, let's put the day before the month. And then we get a different number, so it increases our chances that this number will be a product of 7. In a previous lecture, I said that if you toss the coin, the chance of it being heads is 1 out of 2. And if you toss it a second time, the chance of that also being heads is 1 out of 2 times 1 out of 2 is 1 out of 4. So it's only 1/4. And then I went on to say that if you wanted to hedge your bets and say, okay, I want the heads either in the first one or in the second one, and it doesn't matter in which one I get it, then you're making it easier, right? And I said mistakenly at that time that the probability in that case would be 1 out of 2 plus 1 out of 2, and that would be 1. But I was incorrect, and the good brother corrected me. He sent me an email. I wanted to mention his name when I make this correction, but now I forget his name. I'm so sorry about that. But I'll mention his name in public another time just to give him credit for that. But in any case, I was mistaken. It's not 1. Because you can get a tail on either one of them, and you can get a tail on both of them. So if you get a tail on both of them, then you got no head, right? So the actual product is the actual chance of getting a head on either one of them is 3/4, 3 out of 4, because there are 4 possibilities altogether, and 3 of them will give you a head either on the first one or on the second one, and 1 of them will give you a tail on both ones, in which case you got no head, right? So it's the chance of getting a head on either one is 3 out of 4. Now, in the case of 7, if you did all these tricks with the numbers forming your birth date, then you increase your chance of getting the 7. But still, it doesn't come to like a 100%. And then, if you got it, like one person increased his chance of getting his birthday to be a product of 7, then what is the chance that his neighbor will also get a product of 7, and his neighbor will also get a product of 7, and so on? To get so many 7s, not only from your birthday, but from the other person's birthday and from the other person's birthday, the chance of this is rather remote. Now, when we take the numbers that pertain to the Quran, we see that again and again the numbers turn out to be a product of 7 in a remarkable way. Now, how many years did it take for the Quran to be revealed? How many years? Tell me. Shout it out. How many? 23. 23. This is so common. It is well known. It is known by Muslims. It is known by non-Muslims. Even people who write books against Islam, they still say it is 23 years. In recent times, some scholars, the Orientalists, had proposed that the Quran was not revealed within the 23 years that we take it to be revealed in. They say that it looks like the Quran must have had a long period of its formulation and growth until it was put together. They say some 200 years. The scholar who is most notable in this regard for this theory is John Wansbrough. And two of his students, Andrew Ripon and Patricia Crone, had actually followed him in this, and they came up with their own side theories, or you can say a variation of that theory, and they published it in a book called Hagerism. But subsequently more information has been found, and now that theory is discredited. Michael Cook has turned around full circle from that theory, and he has shown that actually the Quran was actually available very early on, and not within the 200 years that John Wansbrough is saying that it came to be developed in. And Patricia Crone herself has now modified her theory considerably, and now she's saying that whereas Muslims think that the Prophet, peace be upon him, died in the year 632, it was actually 2 years later. That's her theory, but the widespread theory that is accepted among Orientalists is that the Quran was revealed in the 23 years, and this is what is known. It is quite popular. Now, it is very interesting that if we work with this number 23 and we say how many chapters of the Quran there are, now this is indisputed, there's 114 chapters, right? So now if you start with 23 and then you place 114 beside it, then you get a longer number. The number is 2, 3, and then 114. 23114. It turns out that that number is a product of 7. I have it here on a sheet of paper worked out on my Excel program. I didn't invent it myself. Abdul Daim actually came up with this, and I did it on my own Excel worksheet to make sure that we're getting the numbers right. Because one of the things that have plagued this whole field of numerical miracles in the Quran is that people have published incorrect numbers. And when later on somebody checks the numbers and finds that no, these things don't add up, then that kills confidence in the whole area, and people say, okay, we don't want to have anything to do with this. Even Muslims turn away from this because it looks like there's some kind of trickery and deception involved, and we don't want to be part of that. Which Muslim wants to be part of that, right? We believe the Quran to be the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We should present the facts about it and not distort anything about it. So this is on white paper. It's my, in hindsight, I should have printed this on a different color paper so that it can actually show up on camera. I don't know if you are able to read this. Brother Ray, are you able to read these numbers? So the top line there says 23, and then it's followed by 114, which is the number of surahs in the Quran. And that number together, 23114, turns out to be a product of 7. Is it legible? What I can do is I can post this on the web as well. It might take me a couple of days to get settled and do this, and then everyone will be able to see this. So that's the 23, followed by the number of surahs. Now, what if we take the number of verses in the entire Quran? How many verses are in the entire Quran? I don't expect you to remember, but now, how many? 6,236. 6236, right? 6,236. So now if we start with the 23 and we combine that with the 6236, we get 236236. And that longer number made up of 6 digits is also a product of 7, as you can see right here. Now, if we forget about the 23 for a moment, and we just went with the surah number and the number of surahs and the number of verses in the entire Quran, so we have 114 surahs, followed by the verse numbers 6,236. So we have 114, 6236, and that larger number, which is made up of 7 digits, is actually a product of 7 as well. So for these numbers, one after another, to be a product of 7 is really remarkable, because you're getting the 7 this way and you're getting it that way in many different ways. So there is more complexity to this, but given the nature of our lecture here, you know, if we're not in the classroom setting, if we had a chalkboard and so on, we would show more details about this. We'll go into a greater depth than what we have done here, but I'll leave it at that for the moment. So let's say now we ask, what is the first surah of the Quran and what is the last surah of the Quran? Is there a connection? Previously, in some of my lectures, I have pointed out that there is a thematic connection between the beginnings and end of surahs. And there is also a thematic connection between the beginning of the Quran and the end of the Quran. So if you take Surah Al-Fatiha, Surah Al-Fatiha at the beginning starts with Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Praise be to Allah, the Lord of the worlds. The last surah of the Quran, Surah An-Nas, refers to Allah as Rabbun Nas. When we say Qul A'udhu bi Rabbin Nas. So there's a thematic connection. Now, if we look numerically, we see that there is a numeric connection as well. In a similar way, we combine the numbers to make a larger number. Then we find that the first, the difference we have to point out here is that Arabic language is read from right to left, whereas English is read from left to right, right? But in Arabic, the numbers also go like the English way, from left to right. So when we're thinking logically of how to organize these numbers, so we think chapter and then verse, chapter and verse, or we think first and last. So when we think first and last, in English we would put the first on the left and the last on the right. But in Arabic, the first will come on the right and the last will come on the left. So if we do that for the Quran, we look at the chapter numbers. Chapter 1 followed by chapter 114. That makes a longer number of 4 digits. 114. Am I getting that right? Let me look at it and be sure. So we got the last surah, 104, on the left, and then followed by 1, which is the chapter number 1. So chapter number 114, chapter number 1. So is there a connection between these two chapters? And numerically there is, because this larger number is a product of 7. Now, if we look at the first word and the last word, the first word is actually bism. The first word in the Quran is actually, technically it's ism with a particle b, and the particle ba is not a word according to Arabic grammarians. The Arabic grammarians say that you have the ism and fi'l and harf. Harf is like a letter. So bism is b plus ism. B is only one letter, and it doesn't form a word according to the grammarians. And when it is written together with the following word, thus forming a single word with what is in English would be translated as the following word. So that word bism we have then is the first word. How many times does that word occur in the Quran altogether? 22 times. And how many times does the last word of the Quran, what's the last word of the Quran? Tell me. Last word of the Quran. Min al-jinnati wan nas. Nas is the last word. Nas occurs in the Quran 241 times. So again, if you go with the same order, so the last one has to be first, given the way in which Arabic is compared with English. So 241 followed by 22. So that number is a product of 7 as well. combining so we got the number 7 by combining the first the number of the first surah with the number of the last surah. We got the same product of 7 by combining the number of times the first word is used in the Quran and with the number of times the last word of the Quran is used. Now we are running out of time, so I want to move on very quickly now to another aspect. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In a previous lecture we saw that Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim comprises 19 letters. Remember that? 19 letters, and we saw that that relates to one of the miraculous features of the Quran, that things turn out to be a product of 19. Now we are looking from another aspect, and we're looking at the number 7, and we're seeing that things work out to be products of 7 as well, and the two systems might intersect and overlap in some cases. Now we look at the number of letters that make up the word Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, but now we're concerned with how many letters are in each word. So we have 4 words: Bism, Allah, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. So Bism, 3 letters, Allah, 4 letters, Ar-Rahman, 6 letters, Ar-Rahim, also 6 letters. That's how we get our 19 letters. So now, if we look at the number that's formulated by combining the digits that represent the number of letters in each word, we get 6643. And that 6643 is a product of 7. Now, why this is so significant now, according to this researcher, is that if you just take the total number of letters, okay, Bismillah is comprised of 19 letters, that's fine, but that doesn't tell you the internal structure of this statement. Which word comes first and which word comes second. But with this now that we're discovering that, you know, there are 3 letters here and 4 here and 6 there and 6 there, it means that if you interchange the words, if you interchange Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim, this mathematical structure still remains. But if you put Allah at the end, which grammatically seems possible, because in that case it'll be, as the grammarians would say, a battle for Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim. So in that case, the mathematical structure would be destroyed. So if you shift words out of their places, the structure would be destroyed. So this finding then shows places to generate this mathematical structure. This, I think, is remarkable, and it takes our investigation into the numerical miracle of the Quran a step further. There's much more to say about this, but we have to break because we have to break our fast as well. So tomorrow will be the last day for this series of lectures. I invite you to come out, all of you, back tomorrow, inshallah. Those of you joining us on the web, please join us again tomorrow for that concluding lecture. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.